Bum, 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 ba-na. A survey's a survey is a survey. Let's go. Oh no, that's all right. Rocking the Calvin Klein, Laura. I forgot it. What are you gonna do, folks? All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. I can't stand traveling. Something always goes. If I didn't have the little one with me, I'm always more risky when I travel. But if I didn't have the little one with me, maybe I'd have been back in time. But it was like a deluge. Either way, I'm glad I went. I think it was fairly important. So now here we're back, and we can save some of that for talking maybe over the weekend about it. For right now, let's get right into the jobs report so we don't lose any time. All right, so the headline here is the huge revisions in the data from BLS. I will say this up front. This is not new. I'm not saying this because of this specific report. I've been saying this even before the Biden administration, but the Biden administration, I think, made it very clear that my criticisms of what is essentially a survey, all right, is a household monthly survey conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is bunk. I don't trust it. I haven't trusted it since October, I believe it was October of 2012, when the Bureau of Statistics got caught fudging the numbers so that they could get unemployment below 7% to help reelect Barack Obama. There was, for people who don't even know this story, there were whistleblowers that came out. They went to the New York Post. They contacted several Republican congressmen. It did not blow up into a story as big as it should be. Of course, the fake media tried to push back on it, but nevertheless, that happened. And aside from all of that, another reason, even before the Biden administration, is because, and they got to explain this to you guys, because I don't think a lot of people understand how the household month, it's called the Employment Situation Survey. And it is, we know it as the jobs report, colloquially speaking, right? In like popular culture or political culture, we know it's a monthly jobs report, but it's actually called the Employment Situation Report or the Employment Situation Survey. And it's a poll. That's what it is. It's a poll. And a lot of times you will see it differ greatly, all right, between the report, because it always comes out on a Friday, unless there's some holiday or something going on. It will always differ greatly from the report that comes out from ADP, which is a payroll processor company that is actually looking at payroll stubs, their clients. They have a lot of clients, and they're basically sharing their internal data with us. That's not an estimate. It is real. That's the difference between the BLS survey, known as the jobs report, and ADP. That's the difference in the actual methodology. The other difference, of course, is that in the Bureau of Labor Statistics report, they do a bunch of quirky things to come up with an unemployment number. The ADP doesn't even do that. They include total non-farm payrolls, okay? Total non-farm payrolls, including government jobs and private sector jobs, right? Or private sector employment. So ADP, of course, is private sector employment. And as you can see from the report on Wednesday, when ADP came out, it was much stronger. All right. And on Thursday, of course, you had the, which is also from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the weekly jobless claim, even though it comes out from the Commerce Department. All right. Which is below. All right. So You have the Labor Department. Underneath the Labor Department, you have the Bureau of Labor Statistics. All right. And then you have the Commerce. It's different. All right. So what I have always argued is two things. One is we have seen people in my field and government workers display behavior at a disgusting level during the Trump era, to the point where how could you possibly rely on them anymore to give you credible data? There's been during the first Trump administration, when annual GDP, the rate of growth of the US economy hit 3%. Charles Payne and I made a big stink out of it back then in 2018. We made a huge deal. We were all over network news. We're all over cable news. Charles used his presence on Fox Business to do it. I have shown you guys the back and forth when we first figured it out. They changed how they report gross domestic product in an effort to try to keep Donald Trump from claiming that he made or fulfilled a campaign promise that he could get us back to 3% growth. It was outrageous. And yes, while that has always been an alternate measure of GDP, it has never been the reported standard methodology for calculating GDP. It's been reported as alternate or alternative measure of GDP. Yet they use that as the primary gauge when they reported that number. So you have, by the way, this leaves out all of the stuff that has been consuming a lot of other headlines with how the administrative state they engaged in a completely seditious conspiracy, a crime against you, to subvert your will and destroy the first Trump administration with something they knew was not true. By the way, if you did not see the 16-minute video that Mike Benz put out, Mike Benz Cyber on X, you should watch it. All right. I mean, he's at a point now where I think I was a few years ago, where it's like you're not surprised anymore because of their behavior. It's been so corrupt. It's been so bad. You're not surprised, but you can't help but to say, oh my God, I can't believe they did this, because it's still, as an American, it's so offensive to us. But why should it be? As an American, you should know that people in power, people at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they hold tremendous power and influence. That is corrupting. It's a corrupting force. And they're fanatics. They're ideologues. We know that. If you're willing to reduce the unemployment number to help Barack Obama get reelected, you're a freaking fanatic. And one thing I remember Charles and I discussing back then is the FBI and the CIA, all of that crap. You know what? That doesn't surprise me. But I never thought, even though we've always known that the media is corrupt, they are essentially an arm of the state, right? We know they're corrupt, but I never expected, and this is true because Charles spent time on Wall Street, I spent time in the street, we all have been in the financial sector before I ever decided to use these skills for polling and election projection. You never expect, as an old schooler, to have financial news, to have financial data disrupted by fanaticism or ideology. That's something that you think is like, it's a real cardinal sin. You can't go there, because if you do, then you have policymakers making all sorts of bad decisions, investors making all sorts of bad decisions. It's just like a huge no-no. You could collapse markets off of it. What are you doing? What are you doing? But I guess the truth is they don't care anymore. They don't care. So while I'm going to read you this report, and by the way, before I say that, then of course we had the Biden administration, where they then fudged the data to make it look like there was more growth in the jobs market than there ever was, that there was more wage growth and participation levels than there ever was. And we would have 12 out of 14 months rolling, constantly being revised down. This month, we got even bigger downward revisions than we ever got in the Biden administration. So, shocker, shocker. Again, and I would say this, and then there was all 4 years of that, guys. 4 years of it. Aside from the fanaticism and aside from everything else, my last point is this. It's still a survey. It's a poll. This whole show, Inside the Numbers, was put together to explain polling better to people, and to explain the challenges of the polling industry. And then, of course, it evolved, right, into something else where we talk about messaging and optics and right and wrong and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, why was anyone ever, because I'm not, but why was anyone ever foolish enough to believe that with all of the problems that we've been talking about for almost a decade now, a decade actually, just not totally inside the numbers, started when, in 2018, something like that? I don't know. I'd have to go back. But even older than that, that I've been around doing this. Why would anyone, especially anyone who follows me, assume that the government, which is one of the most incompetent communities of people ever, why would anyone assume that the government can do better than a media pollster, that the government can do better than a university pollster, that the government can do better than any of these other pollsters? Because that's what essentially the household survey is. Why would you assume they can do better in this time of trial that we have had? Because they're what? The government? The government is the most incompetent, corrupt, stupid, wasteful entity ever to be created by human beings. If the private sector is having troubles grappling with how to do this moving forward, you rest assured that it is even worse at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and with their vendors and contractors that they use to conduct this survey. Honestly, Donald Trump should demand they're fired, and he should hire one of the 3 to 5 people who actually know what the hell they're doing in this industry. I'd never work for the government, by the way, so that's not a pitch for myself. Not happening. Never. But that should happen. And honestly, never say never. The president calls you, you don't deny the president. Like, that's one thing I couldn't stand about the Trump administration. I knew all these people that were Republicans for years. I'd talk to him and be like, I'm not going to go work for him. He's the president, you piece of shit. The president calls, you go, yes, sir. I mean, you serve. Maybe that's just me because I was in the military, but like, you don't think about yourself over the benefit of the country. Anywho, Jerome Powell was just bitching about response rates. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just figured out there are low response rates. So if they just clocked this, guys, as a problem, that means they're like a decade behind this show on how to deal with response rates. First of all, this has been a problem for so long that any pollster or survey researcher who hasn't already figured out or designed a methodology like we have at Big Data Poll to insulate yourself, or at the very least to minimize the impact that various response biases have on you, then you suck and you shouldn't even be a pollster anymore. Honestly, the issue of response bias was a problem 15 years ago. If you haven't figured out how to deal with it yet, you shouldn't even be in this business anymore. And the fact of the matter is, I may be the only one on planet Earth who does know. There are others who have done a good job, but I do worry looking at some other people's results that sometimes they become victims of various response biases. But you should have this already built into your methodology. You should know what groups are participating at what rates each month. You should know how to deal with that. If I ask locals right now, what is the number one reaction, guys, to a response bias? What do you do? If you know you're not getting enough responses, especially from certain groups, and participation rates are low from certain groups, what is the number one thing to do? Can somebody please tell me somebody knows the answer to this? I know you guys know this. And actually, I'll look not just on locals, but everywhere. You guys have to know the answer to this question. You do what? Poll more people! Get more responses! You guys, thank you. Because I knew you guys knew the answer to these questions, right? They're stagnant when it comes to methodology at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in fact, when it comes to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, when it comes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, when it comes to the Commerce Department, all of the Department of Labor, and all of those others that are under them, they have only changed methodology with the CPI, GDP, and other various forms of company when it is something that isn't related to survey or household research, but instead how could I put this in? I mean, I don't need to put it in a nice way. They've only done this when it suits their needs and when they want to bury something. Okay, so GDP is considerably weaker. You have Barack Obama come out and say, you know what, 1% and 2% is the new normal. Get over it. I mean, we're growing well. They go out and help him, and they change the methodology to include announced projects in Hollywood. We're gonna have another X-Men movie. Bang! That's GDP. I'm not joking. Forget about what it actually earns at the box office. Oversample mark. Right. Now, that is not the end-all be-all when it comes to these response biases, but when the response rates are low, you compensate by increasing your sample. Number one, first step. And then we deploy other things that have to deal with survey design and to ensure that these various groups are represented correctly. These types of revisions don't indicate that there's a response bias or something like that, guys. Now, and this is the other side of the conversation we have to have. These types of revisions, especially, they're starting to remind me of the phenomena, the miraculous phenomena that's in the polling industry, where all the mistakes tend to help one political party. That's not methodology. That's corruption. And you can spot it a mile away. Even still, I needed to say that as a caveat to what we're going to read. And we're going to read, I'm going to pull this up front and first. We're going to read it first, even though you know how, like, as I'm reading bullshit, I can't like help but to interject. But I'm going to try my best to limit that because we'll get through it first and then we're going to attack it line by line. And I'm going to make the case. Sorry, my sunscreen's right there. I'm going to make the case that this actually isn't that bad of a report at all. In fact, this jobs report is a good report. That's right. I'm going to do that. Hang tight. Let's bring it up. Bam. By the way, you see I was on Gutfeld? Or I wasn't on Gutfeld. Somebody mentioned me on Gutfeld. Huge. If we have time to bring it up. I mean, I'm so happy that my message is reaching these non-political to political, like oversecting world, like people are understanding what I'm talking about with the realignment, even if most in the consultant class, the fake experts on X and other social media platforms, right? There's a new one every day that pops up, right? All of these people, even though they may be too stupid to understand what I'm talking about, the average person who discusses this is not. And if we have time, I'd love to get into it. Oh, Peppers, you saw it. It was really cool. Yeah, it was. It was, for people who don't know, it was Joe Machi's a comedian, actually. He's hilarious. But he's on Gutfeld a lot. He does his own thing. He's got his own little segment, and then they sit down for like their couch panel. And Joe, in layman's terms, explained why they should not be sitting there laughing hysterically with Quinnipiac polls showing Democrats at 19 or Gallup showing them at the lowest level ever. The lowest we've ever measured favorability for the Democratic Party, folks, was, I believe, 37%. And it doesn't matter anyway, because that's the entire point of the realignment. They have people who will vote no matter what. They are a high propensity coalition. And Republicans are now the low propensity coalition. It's when it was reversed, when the tables were turned, that's how Republicans were able to outperform all the time. Expectations, 2010, 2014. Hell, you could go back even further than that. It was always the case because they had the higher propensity vote. And Democrats always had to rely on minorities and young people and other people who don't vote, especially non-college of all colors, races, and creeds. They had to rely on them to come out. And when they did, boom, Republicans got their asses kicked, boy. John McCain, paging John McCain, but also Bill Clinton, even though he never got to a majority. But he did get them out. Guy won West Virginia, for crying out loud. All right. Now the tables have turned. And Republicans are very much struggling to understand that. They don't understand it. That's the truth. All right, let's get to the jobs report, though. Something which is hilarious because they think economic data is going to decide elections, and that's old school. Dinosaur farts, people. All right? It's not even solid. That's how weak that analysis is. Total non-farm payroll employment changed little in July, up 73,000, and has shown little change since April. The BLS, the Bureau of Labor, the bullshit labor statistics reported on today. The unemployment rate at 4.2%, also little changed in May, which is rather low. Employment continued to trend up in healthcare and in social assistance. Federal government continued to lose jobs. All right, now this is the problem with this report, that it is not true in others, but we'll get that. I don't like that healthcare is trending up. I don't like that social assistance is trending up, but sorry, when you have somebody as big of a transformational figure as Donald Trump still hire people in key positions that have very deep ties to big pharma, what the hell do you expect? All right, social assistance means that, obviously some people are cool with sitting on their ass while Donald Trump is a manufacturing job for you. I don't like it, but it is what it is. There are lots to like, not only in this report, but there's a lot to like in the prior reports that are all starting to paint a picture for us. Both the unemployment rate at 4.2% and the number of unemployed people at 7.2 million changed little in July. The unemployment rate has remained in a narrow range of 4 to 4.2 since May of 2024. By the way, you know what the likelihood is of that? But anyway. Among the major worker groups, the unemployment rates for adult men, 4%, adult women, 3.7, teenagers, 15.2, whites, 3.7, blacks, 7.2, Asians, 3.9, and Hispanics, 5.0, showed little change in July. Interesting, as a side note real quick, I have the employment tracking survey that we have done. We just don't, it's on the front of Big Data Poll. You could go look. It's just that it is a little stale. I have to retroactively have that data put in, because after seeing this and reading over this, and I was thinking to myself, do you know what the odds are that unemployment would range at 0.2% for 2 years? Not good. So let me go see what I found. And I'm going to go put it up there because it will have the percentage of people who are disabled, the percentage of people who say they're students, the percentage of people who are employed full-time, the percentage of people who are employed part-time, the percentage who are unemployed but looking for work, part-time but looking for full-time. We do all that. And we just don't put it. I mean, if you have access to our data, which you should, especially if you're on locals, you could easily check that out and see it yourself. But I have a tracker. I'd like to put it up, and I'm going to do that. That's a side note, because I just don't believe these people anymore. And I'm almost certain when I go plug in the data, what we're going to show is a very lagging malaise-like level during Biden. We're going to see increases in disabled and social assistance. And then when Trump comes along, I'm almost guaranteed we're going to see increases in full-time employment. All right, especially among those who are part-time looking for full-time. Why? Give me a break. Give me a second, and I'll tell you in a second. After the unemployed, the number of new entrants increased by 275,000 in July to 985,000. New entrants are unemployed people who are looking for their first job. In July, the number of long-term unemployed increased by 179,000 to 1.8 million. Here's a great example of bias. A rate under 200,000, a gain of under 200,000 during a Democratic administration, they would have simply said the number of long-term unemployed was little changed in July at 1.8 million. They would have said that. We have actually gone over reports numerous times, countless, where I read that very number and then said, change little. Okay, let's look. 250K is a little. We've done that before. The long-term unemployed accounted for 24.9% of all unemployed people. The labor force participation rate, 62.2, it declined by 0.5% over the year, even though it was little changed this month. I want to see that at 63%. The last time that we have seen that number at 63 was under Donald Trump 1.0. We had not seen it under Barack Obama. In fact, you would have had to go before the Great Recession to see numbers anywhere near there. And then under Donald Trump, we got it to 63% until the ruling class and their allies in China decided to unleash a deadly virus on the world. And then, of course, we had the COVID-induced artificial recession. The unemployment population, and it hasn't been back ever since. The unemployment population ratio at 59.6%. I always say that this is the less cited, but arguably more important than labor force participation. Came in at 59.6, also a little change, but it's down 0.4 over the year. And there's a reason for this, by the way. The number of people employed part-time for economic reasons changed little. The number of people not in the labor force who want a job at 6.2 million changed little, but now it's up 568,000 over the year. They have not used this kind of language in years. They don't talk like this when it's a Democratic president. They just say, it's little changed over the year. That's it. They don't say that, but it's up 568,000. They go and look, go back and look. You'll see. These individuals were not counted as unemployed because they were not actively looking during the 4 weeks preceding the survey or were unavailable to take a job. All right. Here's marginally attached, discouraged workers, et cetera, et cetera. Why am I saying some of this is good, even though it sounds bad? Okay. Federal government continued to lose jobs. Bang! That's it. That's one reason. There are two reasons, but one is the federal government continued to lose jobs. We are seeing a massive, massive distortion, folks, in the in this data because of the loss of federal workers in the labor force. And again, this is why I shared in the beginning a major difference between the ADP report and the monthly jobs report, the monthly employment situation from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, colloquially known as the jobs report, is that ADP is private sector. That's it. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics is total non-farm payroll, so which includes government. This country has been sucking like a vampire parasite from the private sector for decades. All the while, government has exploded. Exploded. By the way, you might, maybe you don't know, but you can see from the chart, which goes all the way back to 1940, look at the explosion in federal government jobs during the creation of the national security state. That's what's doing it. Everyone will have you believe that it is the New Deal and all of that. Yes, obviously, there are still pre-Great Society reforms that added to it. And by the way, I'm going to show you the Great Society jump in a second. But it is the creation of the national security state that will turn the United States federal government into the largest employer in the world. It is simple math, folks. You cannot have the federal government grow at a rate that outpaces the private sector. The federal government lives and sucks the life force out of the private sector. The bigger it gets, the more it takes from the private sector. Without the private sector, there is no revenue. This is a very simple equation that stupid leftists cannot understand. And I'm sorry, of course, everybody knows I want leftists, I want right-wingers, I want everyone watching the show because I want everybody to learn and listen and to talk with each other. But it is a very simple thing they cannot allow to sink into their hive minds. You cannot take more than you make. It's fiat. There you will see the Eisenhower administration. He tries to do what he can. It doesn't work. The military-industrial complex wins out, okay? We have periods where things will stagnate. Kennedy will get his brains blown out, and then Johnson will get in. And then from there, we will see the Great Society come into full force along with Vietnam, and kaboom, jobs explode again. All right. And while we have small periods of tiny dips where you see people like Nixon try to peel it back, although Nixon did create the EPA. All right. we will see a general upward trend. Throughout the 1980s. This may surprise people. There absolutely is a spike during the during early 80s. Of course, that's April of 1981. Everyone I know who's on the left loves to point out the big spike in the 80s. Oh, Ronald Reagan, it was a lot of public sector growth under Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan took office in January of 1981. I hate to pop your bubble. All right. From there, it went down a little bit. We had a little bit of a recession. He was coming out of it. It hurt Reagan's numbers quite a bit. Reagan's economic policy kicks in, and we get out of the recession and go from there. All right. You really don't see any meaningful decline until the Republican Revolution kicks in, and then you see a drop. Bill Clinton triangulates, tries to make nicey-nicey with the Republican Party. Republicans overstep, as usual, take some of their victories as affirmations of their own policies and personalities, as they always do. And it is always a mistake because nobody likes the Republican Party as a brand. They like people and ideas. And then it all ends up awry. Bush comes along. He's one of the worst presidents in the entire world. And from there, we see the Department of Homeland Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. There is, some periods, very, very small period of when Trump tried to address this. It didn't really do much. And then we have COVID. We have all this other healthcare explosion in the COVID era. Look at that. This is disgusting. It makes me honestly want to vomit. August of 2020, we're going into the election here, and we have this huge spike because of the V-shaped recovery period that we're having after the COVID shutdown. But it's already too late. We've already added all these federal government jobs. Healthcare also explodes like no other. And then here we are. Okay. This is now the 6th month in a row where we have seen declines in the federal workforce. It is very difficult to go back during this chart, folks. And actually, if you go to the 1 year, you can see it even better. Okay. In the 5 year, look at that. All right. And again, the only other time, like I said, that you can really see, if we can do a little bit more, let's go from, you'll see Trump's first term if we do this. January 2021 to, let's go to, still, you can see Trump's first term here pretty well. He tries in 18 to address it a little bit. It doesn't work. Republican rhinos win the day. They work with their Democrats behind his back, and, all of his ideas go to pot. Nothing happens. All right. So there's the COVID jump, of course, right? Because he did mobilize the biggest private sector, public sector partnership to deal with COVID since World War II, since Roosevelt. He got, which, whether you oppose it or you support it, it's an enormous achievement, and it's going to have obviously some lasting impacts and opportunities, right? For government. And then, of course, here, what are we seeing? What do we see here, guys? In the summer, the spring actually is when it starts to kick off. You can see it gearing up in the spring of 2022. Well, that's called war. Right. And then we don't see any meaningful decline until Trump retakes office. That very same month, after that very next month, we see a drop, we see another drop, we see another drop, we see another drop, and now we're here. So shrinkage in the federal workforce. If this keeps up, this will be huge if we have any hope or any prayer in the future, guys, to really tackle our we have a structural problem with this debt. It's not just that we spend too much and we have too much of a taker society. We have too much of a gun-centered society. And unless we, first of all, the more you take from them, their share of the pie, the economic pie, the weaker they will become. Starving the beast, which was the saying that was used a lot in the 90s as we went over that period before, it did have an impact, but it wasn't a lasting impact. It decreased what they were going to get by balancing the budget. So government, by necessity, had to make do with what they had. Unfortunately, Republicans did not stick to their guns, and George Bush, again, being probably the worst president of our lifetime. I don't know who else is the worst. He took a peace dividend and squandered it and ruined it, and then handed us off with a terrible debt, which everyone wanted to blame Obama for. But the truth is, Obama was just continuing George Bush's recklessness. He's like the Caligula of our time. I'm not kidding. Tiberius, I mean, at the very least, he was the worst president of our lifetime. Where I wouldn't do that. I was going to say I'd give my left nut to have Bill Clinton back, but I wouldn't do that. Bill Clinton was a conservative president compared to George W. Bush. That's just a fact. All right. As far as fiscally conservative, he was. All right. So here we are. So this is why I would argue, this is reason number one, why I would argue that this is actually a pretty damn good jobs report. Now, would I rather see larger gains in other areas, like especially construction and manufacturing, private sector? Of course. But again, back to my caveat, I don't trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics to be honest about that. You may see that next month. Maybe they just got tired. Maybe the fanatics who work for the federal government, who's under assault right now, they're under assault. The people who are charged with doing this survey are under assault from this administration. You don't see a conflict of interest there? Honestly, Donald Trump should take this survey out of their hands. I'm serious. He should remove this survey and give it to somebody who has skin in the game, but doesn't have a conflict in the game, and also happens to be competent. And I'd be happy to give some suggesting names if that is. I mean, it's an obvious idea. It's not even an idea. This is an obvious thing here. You should absolutely do this. All right, back up to it. We'll finish reading it, then we'll get on to lesson 2. Social assistance trended up +18, healthcare +55. I don't like that. That's above the average we've seen in the last 12 months. Healthcare is another very deeply corrupted industry. I don't want to see healthcare increase. I don't think we need any more doctors. I don't think we need any more nurses. It's not even that. The healthcare jobs are not just doctors and nurses. Like, this is the healthcare industry. So let me put it that way. I'll take more doctors and nurses, but I don't want any more big pharmas. Federal government declined another 12,000. It's down 84,000 since reaching a peak when Trump took over. I forgot to even point that out in the chart. When Donald Trump took over, there were more federal workers than there had ever been. And now they're in their steepest decline in a non-recessionary period. This is huge. This is great. And yes, it's true. It's in parentheses right there. So what you're saying is true. Just so, let me share that because it is right there anyway. Let me read this sentence because it's actually better if you're a limited government person or if you're somebody who's just not stupid and doesn't realize, and knows, if you're somebody who's just not stupid and knows that the federal government is way too big, we can't sustain this, and also they're doing damage to our system of our way of life. All right. So if you know that because you have a brain, then this sentence is going to make you even happier because what I'm trying to tell you is it's even better than it looks. Why? Because federal workers, do you remember all of this with Doge? Here's your leave. Here's your severance pay. We're going to pay you for 6 months to sit on your ass at home and look for another job until you can get something in the private sector. And a lot of these people took that. A lot of them took these deals or just got fired, right? Including plus unpaid leave, because they weren't just fired and sent out the door, guys. They were fired and handed a severance package like you would never get in the private sector. Paid leave, federal workers, unpaid leave, and those who were federal workers but still are now in the severance pay period, they are still being counted as employed. So it's even better than you think. So what I'm trying to tell you is, and there's one of two reasons I said. The first is simple. Our jobs reports were not nearly as positive as everyone had thought they were for years. It's fake. It's phony. It's garbage. It's a lie. We have been living like a drug addict on a high with something, consuming something that isn't good for us on a daily basis. And now it's time to stop sticking the needle in our arm. So it wasn't good before because you felt good. It wasn't good before because the drugs made you forget. You just didn't realize it was bad. It was fugazi. The good feeling was a fugazi. Now it's time to wake up and get back in the real world. Employment showed little change over the month in other remaining industries. And if we had time, we would go through it because, again, they're all very funny with this stuff. Let me tell you. Little change means little change when they want it to. But some change and increase when they don't want to tell you, mining is increasing or quarrying is increasing, then it's little changed. Okay. Average hourly earnings for all employees, big deal here. On private non-farm payrolls rose 12 cents or by 0.3% to 36.44 in July. Over the past 12 months, average hourly earnings have increased by 3.9. Actually, under Trump, that has actually been better, especially considering inflation, which I'll get to in a second. In July, average hourly earnings of private sector production and non-supervisory employees rose by 8 cents or 0.3 to 31.34. That also is a big deal. It also happened under the first Trump administration. It did not happen during periods, even with Joe Biden and Barack Obama, when they could claim that average hourly earnings year over year or month over month wage growth was getting stronger. And that is that there is actually comparable gains for the working class. It's not just the professional class who is seeing these bounces, all right, in pay. It is the working class that is also seeing an increase. And the reason number two that I'm going to argue this is actually a good report for America is a part of that reason. A big part of why that's happening is reason number two, but just bear with me and I'll get there. Anyway, by the way, this wage growth was larger than expected. The consensus was 3.7. It came in at 3.9. So that's actually pretty good. Manufacturing did decline, and it declined more. The revisions were more than previously reported. But again, I think it's largely bullshit. And I think we're going to see some changes later on down the road. Even if we don't, I just don't care. I don't believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics with certain things anymore. They've lost their credibility with me. All right. Why does that wage growth number matter more than you'd expect? Because of the decline of the rate of inflation, again, the rate of increase of costs for goods and things like utilities and transportation, right? And of course, we have food and gas. Those sub-indexes are huge parts of it. The decline in that rate means that when wages rise, you're getting more for your buck. You're getting a bigger pay raise than you were before when inflation was outpacing or just kind of like maybe on pace and eliminating whatever wage gains you were seeing. Okay. And by the way, there was a huge drop. And if there was some stuff I was looking at that was making me a little bit nervous, we were seeing some spikes in daily inflation indicators, which I was getting a little nervous about, but it was a massive decline at the end of the week in inflation. So this is good. This is very, very good. Did he just fire the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner? Did he? Are you serious? Nice. It is. Can you guys bear with me for a second? BLS commissioner should be fired, and the household survey should be given to someone who wants it. Or should be given to someone who wants it, but also one of the handful of people who actually know what they're doing. And I had to put who wants it because I'm telling you guys, do you think I would want that on my damn shoulders? I don't think so. But yeah, and I mean, look, they are not credible anymore. So if I got to look it up on Truth, because not that I don't believe you, Matt, I just got to see this. I'm literally over here saying you got to fire this piece of shit. And he did. I mean, this is great. Now, next, you got to get rid of Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Let's do I'm going to get to reason number 2. Just hold the phone, guys. Hold the phone. This is CNN alert. CNN alert. Excellent, Mr. President. Damn good job. Damn good job. I was just informed that our country's jobs numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, Dr. Erica McCartney, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the jobs numbers before the election to try to boost Kamala's chances of victory. Oh! This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the jobs growth in March of 2024 by approximately 818,000, and then again right before the 2024 election. I mean, Mr. President, they've been doing this since Barack Obama. All right. I mean, probably maybe before, but we all knew and got wind of it, during Barack Obama. These were records. No one can be wrong. We need accurate job numbers. I've directed my team to fire the Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. McEntarfer. I've always messed this woman's name. McEntarfer, as I think how you say it, said there were only 73 jobs. I shocked, but more importantly, that a major mistake was made by them. 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year. Always to be negative. This is what I'm saying. Mr. President, and everyone else. This is what I'm saying. We're now seeing this shady shit with the jobs numbers that we see with the polling numbers. The mistakes are always benefiting Democrats. The mistakes are always hurting Republicans. That's not a mistake. That's an intentional effect. They're doing that on purpose. A sound methodology gets things wrong both ways, within reason, within the sampling errors. There aren't these huge, monstrous revisions that should not happen. Listen, maybe every 20 surveys, you could justify big revisions like that. Maybe. Because it's the law of outliers. This is, after all, a poll. It is a glorified poll. This should have happened months ago. Honestly, it should have. There's only 5 people in the country qualified to do this survey. I'm not kidding. There's like 5 people who can do this. I'll mention them right now. There is, of course, myself. There's Mark Mitchell. There's Matt Towery. He could do it because I know it's not just can you politically poll. You have to have experience doing economic indicators as well. Maybe there's only 3. Holy shit. Oh my God. I don't know that Robert's ever done it before. I could ask him, but I don't know if he's ever done this. Has he ever conducted an economic survey like that? I don't know. A household survey on an economic indicator. I don't know. I know Mark and I both have. We've done work for Wall Street firms. We've done our own monthly jobs numbers for Wall Street firms. And seltzer, baby. I'm serious. I don't know who else is qualified to even do this. Call Mark Mitchell. I'm sure Rasmussen will do it. Why not? They're all left-wing fanatics doing all of these indicators. Why not? Screw the media and how they're going to react. Screw them. Call Mark Mitchell, Mr. President. I'm sure he'll do it. Oh my God. Hold on. I gotta tell something. Hold on 1 second. I just realized something. Oh my Lord. This is so important. And I can't tell you guys yet. It's going lower than I want it to go, but it's got to be done like this and it's got to be done right. And I promise you, once we do, then once we're ready, it will be worth it. Okay. It will be worth it. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, and this is why we have to. We're basically. Oh my God. I think like Morning Consult could claim they could do it, you know? I just don't know anybody else. I don't know another firm that even does that kind of work. So, I mean, you have the Nielsen, maybe. I don't know. I mean, no, because I mean, I've seen some issues with Nielsen before. You can read all about their methodology at the end of the report if you want, but all right. Secondly, let's get to reason number 2. Well, this is important. Okay, yeah, there it is. Excellent job, Mr. President. That's called shaking stuff up. By the way, the Congressional Budget Office has to go too. Their bullshit bureaucracy that was established for the sole purpose of perpetuating Great Society reforms. Okay, what do I mean by that? During the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration and the Great Society, the CBO's task, their mission, was to basically score proposed reforms to big government programs in a way that would make it politically not a viable idea to mess with these programs, all right? To reduce taxes, not viable, right? So their entire, and by the way, Obamacare, look at what they did during Obamacare. They literally were in the White House with the Biden-Obama administration deciding how to fudge the scoring of Obamacare and how to use language that could later not come back to bite them in the ass when it was argued before the Supreme Court. Tax, not penalty. Penalty, not tax. The White House logs are there. They were there hand in hand with the freaking foreign-funded Brookings Institute scoring a load of bullshit for you. Unbelievable. All right. Let me just quickly, I forgot to run this when we were talking about fair value. Hang on one second. Let me run this clip. And oof, we're almost actually, damn, really? Is it that time already? It is. Okay. I was gonna say, and we will run the clip. We're gonna go over. Are you guys okay with that? We're gonna go over. It's gonna happen, you know. So I apologize if you had something planned out and you were hoping we would get through this within a certain time. I really wanted to do a show yesterday anyway. So like, you know, it's just so much to do in one shot. So we're going to wind up going over if that's okay. By the way, Laura's like, go over. You missed, you know, the opportunity to make up Wednesday's show. So the boss gets what the boss wants. All right. In the meantime, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'll play that clip and then we'll roll into reason number 2. Sound like a plan? I really wanted to get into this like entire communications war and the Axios report. I can tell you right now, I got calls from people surrounding that whole thing. Yesterday that came out, it was the Axios report that came out that's saying that basically some people in Trump's orbit that are MAGA, that are real MAGA, not, there's always going to be the fakers, you know, especially around the president. It happens. They are now telling donors and Republicans on the Hill that the relationship with Israel is going to cost them turnout. They're starting to realize, oh, and you know, that guy, the People's Pundit, maybe might know what he's talking about. Right. I can tell you, I got calls before and after because everyone knew the report was coming out. And I really wanted to enlighten you about some of them because it's unbelievable. It's like some of them are just like, that report's not true. It is true. Israel is now basically hated by 2 out of 10 Republican voters, and even more when it comes to MAGA voters, which is not synonymous with Republican, which is a mistake people make all the time. And you can now even see it in a new survey that just came out from Gallup. So we're all wrong. And I'm not saying that these people are like 100% accurate about everything. And I believe that they're exaggerating Trump's declining numbers among young people and other people. I think they're exaggerating them. But the trend is real. And the trend against Israel has been for a while. And underpinning all of these problems that Trump is having is some kind of a conflict of interest with his friend Netanyahu and Israel and what Israel wants. And his voters are starting to say, you know what? I don't like this guy. It's a problem. And we're not just talking about anti-Semites. You know what? You know what this sounds like to me? All of you apologists for Israel when they just like kill innocent people in a church. You know what you sound like to me? Oh, Barnes is an anti-Semite. Barris is an anti-Semite. You sound like a Democrat. Throwing an ism, an ist, is something at somebody because you can't intellectually defend your argument. That's called being a Democrat. So you should have voted for Kamala Harris last election. What I'm not is a murderer. What the American people are not are cruel. And you're asking them to blindly not only support, not even support. You're asking them to blindly follow an ally who is causing them to compromise their values. And anyone who brings it up is an ist, an ism, a this, a that. Again, that is how the Democrats operate. Maybe you're on the wrong side. Let's take a break. My friends over at 1775 rejuvenates the bomb. Let's be honest, most coffee, it'll give you a quick hit, and then it leaves you jittery, foggy, and you're reaching for another cup before lunch. But what if your coffee actually did something for your health? Rejuvenate coffee is science-backed, infused with CAAKG, a compound that's shown to support cellular energy, metabolism, even healthy aging. This puppy's Laura approved. Miss Laura is borderline health fanatic at this point. But she does her due diligence. It's not a gimmick. It's not just trendy. It's built for people who take their health seriously, especially those who love great coffee and who want to show up with focus and strength every single day. If you care about how you feel and you feel 10 years from now, this is your coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com and order Rejuvenate coffee today. Fuel your body, protect your future, rejuvenate. Use the promo code TPP. I love this stuff. Absolutely love it. By the way, I'm a little bit off the walls, and it is not from a coffee high. All right. Yeah, or I'd say caffeine high. I've been feeling good lately. I have. My health was not doing well before the election. I was too stuck in an office, giving too much to the numbers. And not that I'm not going to do that anymore, but like at some point you have to say things have to wait. I need to take care of my health. And if you could do that, simply ordering a cup of coffee or buying a cup of coffee off the internet, that's not the garbage you get in the grocery store. Okay. Step one, because the effects of Rejuvenate compound over time. And by the way, they do. I mean, I'm just telling you, I actually consciously notice a difference. We should do more health stuff, health related shows where we talk about statistics with health. Yes, we should. All right. Let's get back to it. Let's play that clip. And then this way we're done. I mean, we're basically done with the report. There's one, chart that I badly want to show you. But before I do, I zoomed over the last argument without playing this clip. And I think it's important to play this clip because even when they see it, you know it's real. CNBC.
Hourly earnings on month-to-month basis come in as expected, up 0.3. And if we look at year-over-year perspective, up 3.9. That's important. That's 1/10 higher than expected, 0.2 higher than the 3.7 in the rearview mirror.
And higher than inflation. Higher than the rate of inflation. It's almost okay if there's modest, dealable, if that's a word, tolerable levels of inflation. as long as wages are outpacing them by a considerable amount, where you still have enough for your whatever you need, where you feel like your wallet is still solid. But in this case, we may actually be seeing some more declining inflation. I am worried about the sanctions with Russia. I'm worried about the entire conflict. Donald Trump was not elected to appease the foreign policy establishment. We all know Donald Trump is willing to take a deal that is not acceptable to the foreign policy establishment, including the people he has around him, who honestly should not be around him. The war in Eastern Europe is lost. You're making yourself look weaker by refusing to admit that it is lost. You were the aggressor. You are now willing to hurt your voters who put you in power in order to appease the foreign policy establishment that you ran against. This is stupid. Summons or no summons, which I'll say on podcast and during the summons, the same damn thing. This is stupid. If Russia was to have maintained the Warsaw Pact, and we said, you know what? I do see its effort as a balancing effect, but I just don't want it to expand. And then Russia ended up putting a satellite state in like Alberta. We would lose our shit. Lose our shit. Be honest with yourself. There are no good guys or bad guys in this. They're all bad guys. Keep the moralism bullshit out of questions of national vital security interests. The Russians are not a threat to us. In fact, all of the research suggests, all of the scholarship suggests that the Russians never were. At the maybe a very small period during the Cold War were they a considerable physical threat. Their real threat has always been their ideology at that time, and whether or not they would side with China, a demon of our own design, when in fact they are in overlapping spheres of influence. It was the stupidest thing in the world to push Russia into the arms of China. It may be the end of us. It may. And might end up being the end. I don't care how the Europeans feel. Pay your own fucking bills. You're allowed to have all of these like left-wing communist experiments, democratic socialism, because we pay your bills and wipe your asses. I don't want to wipe the ass of Frenchmen anymore. I don't give a shit that Germany has a history of going off on everybody. They're not even allowed to militarize anymore. Putin himself was cool with NATO stabilizing Europe. He just didn't want expanding into Eastern Europe. And Ukraine was the border, was that point. And everybody knows it. We did this. This is our fault. Take your L and go the fuck home. We can't even pay our own bills. This is ridiculous. Myth of Empire. Everybody, please read the book Myths of Empire. There are some books that are just on my desk at all times because they're just seminal works that everyone should know. Back to the jobs report, shall we? Here's another reason. Reason 2, and I know we're getting late here. The hour's getting late. Reason 2, Frenchman, that this jobs report is actually a good one, ... for Americans, of course, is what we have been tracking carefully and closely. This is why also I want to look at our own data on our employment tracker data that we have, because what is our sample of, ladies and gentlemen? Registered voters. If they're registered voters, what are they? Which group of people are we not going to have in our sample that the Bureau of Labor Statistics is going to? Right. Because if you're not here legally, or if you're not naturalized, if you're foreign born and unnaturalized, you're not eligible to vote. So you won't be on the voter rolls. So I imagine when I go into this data, I will find in the last 6 months, there has been a huge spike in domestic born citizens, job creation or total, non-farm payroll increases among people who are domestic born citizens. All right, here we go. Foreign born. God, wow. This is the employment level since I believe it's 2007, right? January of 2007. Yes. This is obviously, I'm using, by the way, for people who don't know, this is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, otherwise just referred to as the St. Louis Fed, St. Louis Fed. Right? They have a lot of these economic indicators. The units are in thousands of persons. They're not seasonally adjusted. This is the entire max date. We can edit this graph and play around, okay? But the fact of the matter is we can see. This is about to be. Recession days moving into the era of Obama. You can see that we have basically one full year of the growth cycle, the business cycle being in the growth cycle until we get to the bad recession caused by subprime mortgage rates and the speculators and the government agencies who put a gun to the bank's head and said, you have to loan to these people. And we always leave out the burden and the blame that lies on the politicians and the government who told these banks that they must lend to these people. So while it was a very noble goal to get everyone in America to own their own home and to achieve the American dream, of course, not everyone in America could afford it. So let's not just blame the banks for doing things like adjustable rates and variable rates, all of this and having these tranches of securities that were total garbage and rating them A. Standard & Poor's did that because they're crooked. Regulatory agencies allowed it because they're crooked. Anyway, back to it. Here is an obvious trend of needing Juan and Juanita to fold the laundry of the ruling class, to cut their lawn, to massage them. Everything else we all know they love and they can't go without until we finally get to the COVID area where we do see a steep decline. All right. However, there are very few periods of actual sustained decline in the employment levels of foreign born, while we see the levels of citizens increase considerably, which I'll show a chart from. I just needed to get the credit. Somebody had made a nice visual chart and I just needed to, it's Zero Hedge. Okay. I was asking who do we credit for this? It's Zero Hedge. All right, which I will show you that too. I'll have to say Zero Hedge. Credit goes to Zero Hedge. All right, but here's the foreign born chart. And as you can see, since since about March of 2025, it did increase from February to March, but from January to February, there was a modest decline. I would say within reasonable sample anyway, a reasonable error anyway. So it's not really that much of a decline, but we have a little pop up there. But since March of 2025, we have seen considerable declines in the employment level for the foreign born, which is great to look at on a graph. But I think it's important to understand their share of increase in, what the hell just happened here? I think it's important to look at it more as their share of overall jobs that were actually being created. All right. Does that make sense? So it's not just their total non-farm levels. It's what share of all the jobs created were going to foreign-born workers versus what we are seeing now. All right. Let me see. Can I get that graphic? Where that my trusty, did I get rid of it? No, there it is. All right. I know, it's not going to be as huge as I really wanted it, but bear with me. Credit to Zero Hedge. Let me make that bigger. Here's what you can see, the change since Trump's inauguration, worker nativity, right? So native-born workers since January of 2025 posted gains of 2.5 million, while foreign-born was negative 1.2. And that is the change or the delta since Trump took over, not the total that was either added or reduced. All right. So this is everyone that's been in the workforce and what share of them was native. The native share has gone up by 2.5 million, while the foreign born has declined by 1.2. Honestly, that's a big deal. And if this continues, I imagine that this will be a talking point that they'll be able to make for a while to come. And what I mean? Look, in Trump's first administration, one of the biggest criticisms, and I think that it was a fair criticism, was that Donald Trump had incredible job growth, but that job growth was not benefiting the people who voted for him. You understand what I'm saying? Like, white working class in the Ohio River Valley, they were not benefiting, at least they were, but they were not benefiting as much as some of the other groups who, in fact, did not vote for him or would never vote for him, right? Or in this case, are ineligible to vote for him. They can't even. Now, it may have helped him, because Donald Trump, of course, did edge out Kamala Harris, especially in the important battleground states among newly naturalized citizens. Florida, he fucking stomped her. Pardon my French. He curb stomped Kamala Harris in Florida among people who were newly naturalized and eligible to vote. Stomped! Doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Republicans don't win those votes, guys. They don't win those votes. All right. So, there we have it. The president is also, it appears, calling on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors to usurp the power of the Fed chair. Ooh. That would be huge. And now Banana Republic is trending. No, it's a Banana Republic, you stupid bastard, Matt Darling. It's a Banana Republic. I'm calling him out by name. Matt, you're a stupid bastard. It's a Banana Republic because the federal government believed that because they didn't like how the American people voted, they could decide to engage in a seditious conspiracy to subvert that will and to undermine the duly elected president of the United States. They then continued that seditious conspiracy and converted it into a persecution. And by the way, one which didn't just target the man himself, but average U.S. citizens. You, my friend, are a stupid son of a bitch. I am so sick of dumb-ass people threatening our liberty. I don't care if you are a Democrat or you're a Republican. If you don't see the danger in the administrative state, in the intel state, in the national security state, just deciding because they don't like your opinion that they could veto self-governance, then you are a stupid son of a bitch. And I have no more tolerance for you. Oh my God, bro. Russia didn't hack the election. And by the way, go get a hairpiece or something. You look ridiculous. You needed that lie because you needed the world to make sense to you. Now we know it was a lie and you continue? Liberty is just not meant for people like you. See, I'm not somebody who believes in this bullshit argument like Barack Obama and others used to posit, where, the 99% of the world, they share our values. No, they don't. And unfortunately, many in the country don't share them. Liberty is a gift, and if you're too stupid to realize that, you don't deserve it. As many of our founders, in their own way, would state themselves. Thomas Jefferson said that the government you elect is the government you deserve. Franklin said that you just don't get this thing. You have to keep it and earn it. See, this is where it all comes down to. They all believed in earning it. Whereas these privileged little pieces of shit just think that, it comes with everything. Because the God you don't believe in, you mean? John Adams. It's not conducive to everybody, is it? No, it's not. This thing was designed for a certain kind of people. The rest of them are kind of threats to it. Truth. whether you want to hear it or not. If you are too dumb to understand that you cannot have the administrative state who wield the most powerful tools in any government arsenal, a police power that is now so large, so scary, so severe, our founders wouldn't have been able to even imagine the amount of power that we have vested in these people now. Powers that were designed, entrusted to them, and designed for the worst of our enemies. If you're too stupid to realize that when they use those powers against you to undermine the entire concept of self-governance, then you don't deserve to be free. You're an idiot, and idiots end up oppressed. Woo! 320. I think that's about it for us today, folks. Foreign-born workers are declining as a share of the workforce. Domestic workers are increasing as a share of the workforce. Private sector employees are increasing as a share of the workforce. Public sector employees are decreasing as a share of the workforce. Those are the four main things you need to keep in mind. And I think that's a good thing, considering we're a disgusting amount in debt. And we cannot continue we can't afford for this trend to reverse. This is now a 6-month trend for all of that. And I pray to the Lord above that it continues, because we don't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting ourselves out of this mess if it doesn't continue. Not just the fiscal mess and the financial mess, but the political mess that we have created here. And we collectively, but we all know who I throw this on. Not every generation gave their consent for this. We all know who I throw this shit on. I've made no bones about it. They wanted to spend the first half of their life doing drugs and the second half of their life buying cheap goods and being bought off various forms of money and their own quality of life. And they couldn't give two shits what happens to the rest of us. And that's the truth. That's not my opinion. This is something I've been polling for years. It's true. In their own words and their own opinions, it's true. I don't know why we're all supposed to be afraid to voice it, to vocalize it. And by the way, that clown is one of them. Shocker! My candidate didn't win, so I'm going to overlook the worst political scandal in the history of the United States, and it is the worst. John Solomon's absolutely right. This is the worst scandal in the history of the United States. And by the way, if you're going to hold people accountable, you should start with the media too, who everyone knows lied on purpose to the American public. And again, I'm going to reiterate the call that if you did not check out Mike Ben's Cyber Mike, on Twitter, Mike Ben's, his reaction video when he read these documents. I mean, it's right there. They know it's not true. And they're just like kicking around how to fabricate it. Right, Leonard? Unreal. And then there's the documents with Joe Biden. They all know it's not true. Let's use the Logan Act to go after Michael Flynn. This is evil. This isn't like a disagreement. This is evil. They're evil. You don't need to worry about spiritual warfare or whether you believe in demons and angels to talk about the forces of good and evil. See them every day in the actions of men. All right. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. I think we may be able to do a book club. I just don't want to promise it. I don't want to promise anything because I don't have control over all of these travel times. And school's coming to an end. I mean, summer's coming to an end. School will be starting shortly. So I was going to move it, but I did promise my kids that I would take them to the beach tomorrow. And I don't know how long I can stay there because I got sunburned and now it turned into a beautiful tan. But oh my God, I was a lobster and my legs are still red. Like, oh my God. I haven't burned ever Like I don't burn, but just what I was saying before, I've been trapped in an office for 10 years and the melanin in my skin, the pigmentation of my skin changed. And I'm like, I'm not tanning. So I kept going and doing it. And then bang, I got, what? Okay. Laura's not happy. It appears the doctor gave him a shot that she did not approve of. Oh boy. Oh no. Better not have been the COVID shot. I'll sue them. I'll sue them into oblivion. I'll call Robert right after this, and I'll file a lawsuit. I'm not even kidding. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding at all. If they give my little boy, a COVID shot, I'm gonna sue them. Simple. Badly. With that in mind, I think I'll go and find out what the hell happened with a routine. This is the vaccinations. This is what I'm talking about. These healthcare providers. He's there for one damn shot. It's the polio shot. They know full well how we feel about this. Like the videos if you like them, folks. Also, the link to the public polling project, of course, is below. Contribute if you can, and share it far and wide. That absolutely does help. The more people that contribute to it, obviously, it's obvious, the less burden it is on everybody who does, and also expands the base. We can poll more, right? So, yeah, contribute to it if you can, and pass it around, pass it around like a duchy. And I will see you guys hopefully on Sunday locals, hopefully. And I'll give you like a firm answer on that sooner rather than later, or as soon as I can. All right. Sound like a plan? All right. I'll see you guys later. Don't forget, as always, deuces.